Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this podcast, What a Comedian. I've personally have not been doing well, but that's completely okay because I think I'm definitely getting better. Honestly, for the past week, I've been very depressed and life had not been going well for me for absolutely no reason. And I'm trying to figure out why personally myself, and I can't figure it out. But we're just rolling with it, and we'll see how it goes. But I haven't felt like this in the past until for 2 years, but now it's coming back, and I'm just like, oh, what's happening? But other than that, I'm doing fine. But I did, because of this recent surge of depression, I've decided to amp up my motivation for stand up more. So I signed up for a few classes online, and I'm going to try to see if I can start writing and doing jokes as much as possible, and perhaps performing sometime in my city. And I was actually mentioning to my some of my teachers, and one of them said that if I actually do go, he's gonna make sure to go to that and bring along many of my other teachers to watch. So that's amazing. And oh well, so I have to make it good, or possibly I'll just heckle him. I don't know, but I haven't decided yet. But other than that, I I don't know. My life has been fine. College jobs are technically over. Not really. They're still regular decision, but most of my are in. And I'll let you guys know if anything else happens. But this is my life currently. Do not worry about me though. I am chilling. I've dealt with this before, so we'll see how it goes this time, and I'll continue to update you. Anyways, let's get back to something more lighthearted. Today, I'm talking with Tony Deyo. He's actually a former band director, but he's now a full-time comedian in New York. And I was actually really excited to talk to him because as a band kid myself, or half band kid, half kid in band, I personally love talking to people in the musical or orchestral area, mostly because I myself is very interested in it. Not that I'm exactly good at it. I listen to it a lot. I'm very piqued in it. My interest is piqued, I guess. So it was actually really cool to talk to him and see and talk about his experiences and mine. And he actually has some connections in Arbor, and is actually going to perform in Ann Arbor, where I live, in a month or two, and I'm actually going to try to make it out to it because I don't know, it'd be really cool to meet someone I literally interviewed in person and watch them, and he's really funny. So I'm going to try to make it out. I might have to convince my parents and find someone to go with me. That's also one thing. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope you enjoy this episode, and see you after. How did you like Ann Arbor in general?
Love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
It has a really good downtown considering its like size. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Is like the comedy, like, is there a lot of people that visit, you think, in Ann Arbor for comedy things?
I mean, as far as I know, the Comedy Showcase is the only like real club in town. So, which means every week you're going to have a new headliner who traveled in, most likely,
Yeah.
um, and then maybe like a what they call a feature or middle act who may have driven in. They might be from the area, and then usually a host is someone who lives around the
Mm,
area.
okay.
Um, but I also because that's the place I work. Um, I haven't looked around to see if there's other clubs or anything in town.
I think
Um,
there's another one who does sometimes, like, they mostly do music. It's a Blind Pig. They mostly do music, but I think they also do some comedy things related. I'm not sure, but it's like I can't get into that one because it's actual bar. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I have to wait till I'm
those are the ones that
21.
are harder to get
Yeah,
in.
so
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I wouldn't try on that one.
yeah, yeah. There's some like stories about like older comedians who started, very young,
Yeah.
and they would have to like come in to the comedy club like through the kitchen,
Hmm.
go on stage, do their set, and then exit through the kitchen. Like they couldn't go out into the regular part of the club. So
Wow.
people have found ways to get around, some of the restrictions, but it's worth trying.
Maybe I'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, a comedy showcase is in a basement, so there's only one way in and one way out. I don't know how I'm gonna.
They can't, but maybe if you're accompanied by someone, all the way in and all the way out, maybe that'll work.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
just ask Roger. He'll
Yeah,
tell you.
I'll try. I'll try. All right. All right. Let's get. Okay, I'm gonna go to the main topic now. Okay. All right. So, how and when did you want to become a comedian?
Um, so I didn't really consider it until fairly late in life. I was 28 when I started. But it's also because I kind of grew up in a small town where people didn't become artists.
Hmm.
And, what you did was you grew up and you went and worked in the factory.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something like, some people dream of it from when they're a kid. It never even occurred to me that it was something that I could do
Yeah.
until much later in life. I went to college, I had a regular job, and you know, then I, went and started um, going to open mics and things like that. And that's when I really decided maybe it is something I could do.
I know you did grow up in Utah, so was there much of like a comedy, like anything comedy thing related in your like town, or was there like anything known for it?
So I was only born in Utah.
Okay.
I moved to Louisiana before I was one, I
Oh, dang.
think, and then I moved to Virginia when
Okay.
I was probably six.
Okay.
So I actually grew up in Virginia, and no, like the town I grew up in had no comedy at all. And even in college, there was like an improv comedy troupe,
Hmm.
um, and every once in a while, like a stand-up would come and perform at the college. But they're also I also wasn't actively looking for it. So
Yeah.
maybe there would have been a place that I could go and do stand up when I was in college, but it just wasn't even really on my radar yet.
Like it wasn't obvious to you.
No.
Did you have like any inspirations to when you wanted to do this? You're like, oh wait, I want to be like this person and stand on that stage.
I had watched stand up for a long time. I'm older, so when I was young, Johnny Carson was still
Yeah.
on television, and I saw comedians on Johnny Carson, and even then, I was just kind of amazed by it, but didn't think that's what I want to do
Mm,
until later on.
okay. And did you take any like education or like classes after you decided you wanted to do this?
So I was teaching. I was a band director in Texas, and I was working in Austin, Texas at the time,
Hmm.
and the comedy club there uh, had a class. They were teaching, stand-up classes, and
Yeah.
that was my first sort of effort at it. I took this class, and I I do tell people now I don't think you can learn to be a comedian in a class, but what it did for me, and that I was maybe never going to do on my own, was the graduation was a show, and you had to go up and
Oh,
perform the jokes that you wrote.
yeah.
Um, and that's probably the hardest step in comedy, is going from a person that sits in the audience and watches to a person that says, I'm going to do this, and gets on stage and tells jokes. That's the biggest leap. And then everything after that is just working hard at it and kind of being aware of what works for you and what doesn't, and being able to keep improving. But that hardest step is going from not doing it to doing it.
Yeah. I think definitely from changing from like being watching someone on stage to being the person being watched on stage is definitely hard since everyone's eyes is on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really only had like one experience being on stage. I'm gonna be honest, but it's
Really?
yeah. Like I mean I'm a band kid, but like I do like so like I do like concerts and all that stuff. But there's so many people on a stage, it doesn't really matter that much. Um,
Right. Yeah, you don't feel isolated
yeah,
when
unless you
you're
have like a
on
solo or
stage with a
something.
band.
Like I've only had like
Right.
a solo like once, and that was like the worst thing ever. But it's okay. Uh,
What instrument do you play?
I play the flute. It's a very basic instrument.
They're all kind of
Yeah.
basic in their own way.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I was actually when I taught school, I was a band director.
Yeah. Did you like being a band director?
Loved it. Yeah,
So you said you were doing
yeah,
it in Austin, Texas, correct? I isn't marching band really big down there?
huge. That's why I moved to Texas was to teach
Oh,
in Texas public music system and to teach marching band. That's why I went to Texas.
okay. Did you guys like like compete in like competitive like competitions and all that things? Oh, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Both schools I taught at were very good. The first one was a very small school,
Hmm.
but we had three band directors. I taught percussion. We had a woodwind
Wow.
teacher and a brass teacher. It was amazing
That
situation.
has a lot of funding then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was in Texas. I think they've kind of dialed it back a little bit over the last few years, but there was high schools in Texas that had 6 or 7 band directors. There was a full-time teacher for each instrument.
Oh my
It
God.
was just insane. And that's why those programs are so good is,
Yeah.
when you try to compare it to a school where you have one band director and he doesn't get a lot of funding and,
Yeah.
you know, you, you can't compare.
No, yeah. Like our school district is trying to cut our like music programs and things because
Yeah.
in our program they start instruments in like 5th grade and they're trying to cut that to start from 6th grade.
Hmm.
But a lot of people signed a petition, so it's okay now. But it was like
That's good.
it was a big deal, and they're like, and also we're our school districts are like in like $25 million in debt currently because of like some accounting error. But
Wow.
I know, I know. I'm like, why? But they're like cutting teachers, cutting schools, and it's like cutting programs. It's a huge thing, and like
Man.
yeah, the music program, especially because our long we just had a band director retire this year. And he was
Hmm.
like he was a really famous, he was really good. He like expanded the music program to what it is now. But now that he retired, it's and COVID hitting at this like COVID hitting years before, it's like the band program is getting like smaller and smaller and it's like kind of bad. So,
Yeah, it's hard, especially it's not the fault of the guy that comes in after, but when you have a director that's been there a long time and he's built up a big program, it's hard, no matter who comes in to fill those shoes, it's difficult.
yeah.
You're never going to be that same person, and it's going to take you a long time to build up the program.
Yeah.
So it's one of the growing pains of, it just happens.
How long were you a band director?
Only 3 years. I actually taught outside of Corpus Christi, Texas for 2 years, and then I taught in Austin for 1 year.
Oh, okay. And did you like marching band better than concert band?
So, marching band was my whole life for a very long time. I started, I think, in either 7th or 8th grade, and I went to like I picked my college because I wanted to be in the marching band. I
Yeah.
didn't care what else was going on. It's
Yeah.
like I want to go to this school to be in that marching band, and I did. And I majored in music ed, um, and I marched with a drum corps one summer, and then I taught drum corps. Marching band was my whole life, and then I moved to Texas to teach, and I thought I would be, a high school band director teaching marching band for my whole career. Uh, I ended up loving middle school band,
Really?
middle school concert band, teaching, kids that had never played before.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I end up and I wouldn't have guessed it, but that's what I enjoyed the most.
What's the difference between like high school and middle school mostly?
Um, I liked that age. 11, 12, 13. That's a fun age to teach because they're sort of new on their instruments. They don't have bad habits yet.
Yeah.
They, you know, they have no idea what they're doing. So you get to teach them and, make sure they're doing everything right. And I don't know what it is, but it was just something about it that I really, really loved middle school band.
I mean, was there marching stuff in middle school's bands where you were teaching?
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah, both schools that I taught at outside of Corpus and in Austin, you didn't start marching band until high school.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Cuz like our school does like I don't know, I've heard from like people friends in like Texas where they have like concert band and marching band are different things. Like they're two different classes and stuff. But for
Yep.
us, they're the same class. So
Yeah.
we do marching band until the football season ends, and then we do concert band the rest of the year. So like
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the way it was at the school I taught at. Uh, that had, it was a small school, so the middle school and high school were on the same campus, and
Oh.
so we taught both the middle school and the high school
Oh.
program. Um, and for the high school, like in the fall, we did marching band, and then when football season was over, we went to concert band.
Okay. Yeah, we do the same. But it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like it's weird because our school district is like really big. And our school we have four different concert bands. And like
Oh, no kidding.
yeah,
Boy,
one
that's
jazz
great.
band and like it's a really big program. So
Yeah.
they only allow like the top two bands to march to do marching band and
Wow.
stuff. So it's like it's weird how like we get no funding but also it's like so many people in here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. You should have several band directors
We we
there.
have we have two. There's like a main band director who's like teaching the top two bands and then two directors being the lower two bands. But now they're changing it, so I'm not sure what they're doing. I think one of them has to teach three classes now. I'm
Okay.
not sure, but we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say you
Cool though
were?
that they have a lot of different opportunities for kids.
Yeah, they definitely do. I'm very grateful to be in this program. Um, but it is very competitive, and I am not that into music that much. But I'm like okay at it. So
Yeah.
yeah. Would you say that you were a kid in band, or that you're a band kid?
I'd say I was a band kid.
Band kid. Yeah. Did you
Yeah,
did
it was my whole life.
did you like this is something I don't know I don't know why I do this, but do you like listening to like movie soundtracks and just like listening to like the instrumentals and like hearing all the different instruments you recognize?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love all that stuff, and I like listening to Broadway soundtracks as well.
What is your favorite like band like soundtrack or any soundtrack?
Um, I love all of John Williams stuff. I thought,
He's a
um,
classic.
yeah, yeah, that's the easy answer. Um, I've listened to the most. Yeah, maybe Jurassic Park. I loved that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've probably heard that. And yeah, even in general, Interstellar had
Interstellar is
a kind of a
great.
really cool soundtrack too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know if it was Hans Zimmer.
I think it was Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean Hans Zimmer and John Williams are such big names in like
Yeah,
the movie soundtrack field. Like a lot of the top movies are probably by them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Those are the first two guys you call
No, yeah, the best
the
guys you can
money.
get. But
Yeah.
yeah. What is your favorite like modern band piece, would you say? Like of like all the things you've played?
Um, I love it's not modern, but I love American in Paris. Uh, I think that's probably my favorite. Um, there was a composer who passed away last year who was a teacher of mine, and I used to love a lot of the band music he composed.
Hmm.
I think there was one called The Great Locomotive Chase that I played with a couple of my groups
Oh, okay.
when I was teaching.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, his name was Robert W. Smith.
Oh, okay.
Being in band, you may have played stuff by him before.
I might have. I don't know. I've played so many that I've only like I played like Sam Hazel. Um,
Hmm.
what else? Host. My
Oh
band
yeah,
director loves Host. Our knock into to getting our we have like a basically have a door, an entry door we can get in through the band room directly. And in order to get in, to know you're a band kid, you play like the Mars like
the Mars. Yeah,
yeah, like that's the knock. And it's
yeah.
so funny. But we played Host, we played Hazel. Who else did we play? I don't know. We played a lot of things because our band director is like a huge nerd.
Yeah. There's a guy I went to college with who's become a big composer. His name's Brian Balmages,
Oh, okay.
um, and he's written a lot of stuff in the last several years.
Mm, that's nice. Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've played. I definitely haven't played a lot, but it's just like
yeah,
probably a bunch of the classics. I would say. Like,
yeah,
I think I played like English folk suite.
yeah.
Like,
I never loved that one, but
it's annoying to play. It's
yeah,
annoying,
I didn't like.
especially like the first movement. I hated the first movement, but of course he made that the audition. But whatever. So okay, all right. Anyways, we talked too much about band.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's okay. It's okay. Anyways, back to your comedy. All right. Okay, so your act is pretty clean, I would say. I've like listened to most of your things. Do you strive to make this clean, or is it kind of just comes out naturally for you?
A little bit. I wasn't as clean when I started, um, but definitely kind of it just fits me better to be a clean comic. It's uh, more of my nature. The idea is that I I don't really even want people to notice. I would rather they just notice I'm funny.
Yeah.
And if they're like, "Oh, he didn't swear or talk about anything weird," then that's great. But I'd prefer they're just like, "Wow, he was super funny." But yes, I do work clean. I always I want it to be accessible to everyone. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable at my show. That's not why I think people go to see comedy. So yeah, and it's at this point it's not even really a uh, not a choice or anything that I strive towards. It's just who I am. Like um, you know, dirty jokes or whatever don't occur to me.
Yeah.
It's just not the way I write. When I choose something to write about, or when I think something's funny, it's just it happens to be clean, and I do make an effort to not swear because that's it's kind of a cheap gimmick.
Yeah.
You can make people laugh by saying the F word. It helps a joke, but it's a laugh I don't want. You know, because it's cheating.
Well, you kind of want to earn the laugh.
Yeah, exactly. If it's really funny, then people will laugh without swearing. And then if you want to swear, it doesn't bother me. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's just not who I am.
Okay. How do you think of your ideas when you try to plan your new sets?
Say that again.
How do you think of new ideas when you like try to make new sets?
I do. I do work every day. I sit down and write every day. And usually what will happen is I'll have an idea somewhere else while I'm not sitting and writing, and I'll just make a note and think, oh, I want to work on this later. Um, so that's how it happens. If I don't have any new ideas I'm working on, I go back and try to work on old things I've written because you can always make those things better.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think is like the most important thing to be funnier? Or would you say like would it be like running at jokes in front of like like people all the time to see what makes it get a better laugh, or like just constantly writing down new jokes?
Yeah, I like. I mean, I like writing new stuff. I love trying new things. Um, there's always the kind of not an argument, but two different schools of thought in comedy where a guy like Jerry Seinfeld, his theory is you always do the best jokes you have, uh, no matter what. And he says, his act is like a baseball team where you're not going to replace a player just because you have a new player. It's
Yeah.
the new player has to be better than the old one,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when you replace them. So that's his theory. That's why you go see him today, and you may hear a joke that you heard him tell 10 years ago,
Yeah.
still in the act because he hasn't found something to replace it. Then the newer school of thought that has come around, and I feel like Louis might have been the first guy to do it. I mean, Carlin did it a little bit too, where he was putting out a new hour
Yeah.
almost every year. I, I guess Carlin was probably the first, and then people stopped doing it for a long time. And then Louis started doing it again. And then, so everyone started trying to do a new hour every year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's too soon for most people.
Yeah.
I think uh, what then ends up happening is you start getting mediocre
Mm-hmm.
comedy specials. Whereas if they'd given them another, 6, 8 months, another year, do one every other year, I think it would be a lot better. But, you have to kind of find what works best for you.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think like my favorite comedians definitely they do try to often release new specials, but there's still like probably 1 or 2 years in between because they're honing it so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. I think 2 years is probably the right number if you're out on the road a lot. And I'm not on the road as much as I used to. So for me, probably 3 years is a better
Okay.
turnaround.
Yeah. When you do your sets in front of people, do you try to include some improv in there, or do you try to purely just go with like what was planned?
I'm a do what was planned person.
No
I
crowd
don't
work?
do crowd work. No crowd work. It's that has become kind of a virus in
Yeah.
comedy because unfortunately the social media algorithm has pushed it so much.
Hmm.
Everyone has decided that's what you need to do, and there are people that are very good at it. And it's a skill and it's a talent, and it's not to take anything away from them, but the majority of people are terrible at it. And uh, when you have everyone trying to do it, like especially here in New York, I've seen or heard audience members complaining because
Hmm.
they'll go to the Comedy Cellar and five guys in a row are just doing all crowd work
Yeah.
because they're trying to tape something to put on Instagram or TikTok
Hmm.
that week. And the audience, they didn't come there to hear you talk to the couple in the front row about whether they're dating or married or
Yeah.
why the guy looks too old to be with it's
Hmm.
all the same stuff. You've heard it a million times. There's very little that's new. So I'm a guy, like, if something happens and I need to mention it, I will.
Yeah.
But the idea when I go on stage, I know everything that I want to say.
What are some of your like worst heckles that you've like faced in your career?
I don't get heckled much. And it's,
You're just that good.
what's that?
You're just that good.
Yeah, it's I don't I think a lot of times heckling happens when you upset people. Like if you're talking about politics or, something like that. Um, I don't talk about things that upset people. I talk about very innocuous things. So it doesn't happen to me.
Okay. And also, I'm curious. Um, I th- how did you get your stage name Tony? Because I thought your real name was Anthony.
Real name is Anthony, but I've been called Tony since I was a kid.
Really?
So that's just the name I've always gone by.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that wasn't for stage or
Okay,
anything.
so it just came naturally.
Yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah.
just my name.
And also, you do mention your kid sometimes in your
Yeah,
comedy sets. Does he know
mhm,
what your job is?
yes, very much. Yeah, he'll if he's at my office and he sees my notes, he'll read through the jokes that I'm working on.
Oh,
Um,
trying
so
to
yeah,
target.
he
You're
very
trying to
much knows.
target a smaller, a
Yeah,
younger
younger
generation.
demographic.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that would be smart.
yeah, yeah. Do you intend to have another child? You think?
No,
No.
no, he's no, not. I mean, we had him late in our life anyway, and I feel like one is, I can give him all of my attention. I
Hmm.
always, you know, I feel like another kid, then you have to split your attention, and they don't get as much as they would have if they're just one.
Yeah.
So, there's good arguments on both sides of that, but I feel comfortable being able to focus on one.
I mean, you could always just have a really large age gap. Like I have a really large age gap with my sister. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Yeah.
I have a 17-year-old age gap. So
Oh, that is a lot.
yeah, so when my sister went to college, I was one. So like we both got
She's
attention.
almost more like an aunt to you.
She really is. Like it
Yeah,
feels
because
weird
you didn't
saying
really
like
grow up with her.
yeah,
Yeah,
it feels weird saying like, "Oh, you're my sister," and not like
right.
it's weird.
Yeah, it's hard to have that sibling relationship when you never really live together.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to grow it, but it's just like it's a little hard. But I'm just saying that's
Yeah,
always a choice if you want
yeah, yeah.
to. Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you think of doing a taping with strangers of them no idea who you were?
It wasn't um taping it was my idea, but the show actually wasn't my idea. There was a comedy club in Buffalo
Hmm.
called Helium,
Yeah.
and they actually called me and said, "Hey, we do this show called Stand Up Confidential, where we don't tell, the audience who's going to be here." And I went and did it, and the the show went so great. I was like, "Oh, this would be a fun idea, for an album,
Hmm.
just to record one of these shows." And they had several clubs around the country, so I just decided when they booked me for the next one, um, I'm gonna just record it, and that'll be my next album because I was getting ready to do another album anyway.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of like, although my next one won't be the same, but I like the idea of doing something different for an album.
Hmm.
And my very first album was kind of normal, and then my second album, I recorded each track in a different place,
Yeah.
and then this one was the audience didn't know who I was going to be. So I like that idea of doing something different. It makes it interesting to me
Hmm.
instead of, just putting out another, album. But that being said, my next one's going to be normal, just
Well, maybe that's the
recorded at a
special
club.
thing that it's normal.
Yeah, that is the special thing for me is that
Yeah.
it's normal.
Yeah. I saw that you're taping soon.
Yeah, in February,
Are
a little less
you
than 6 months now.
yeah, do you do anything to prepare for like a taping of anything?
The most I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the road for about 4 weeks before, like every weekend
Hmm.
on the road for 4 weeks before I take.
Oh, okay.
So that'll uh, that'll be, just a chance to run it as many times as I can.
Uh-huh. And I've known you've gone on like Conan and Ferguson. Is there much
Mhm.
difference between like a live show and going on something that is like televised like that?
Uh, it for sure feels like a lot more pressure,
Yeah.
because a live show, you know, even under the greatest circumstances, you only have a couple thousand people watching
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
And that's not even my life. I'm used to 100 people watching me at a club.
Mhm.
So when you go on TV and the camera's on, there's you know several 100,000, maybe million. I don't know. It's a lot more people watching,
Yeah.
and you don't really have any room for error. Nobody wants to see you uh, sort of do well.
Mhm.
When you go on TV, that's the World Series, and you really have to be ready for it.
Is there was there any difference between like the two shows you went on, like the difference like in setup or like how much time they gave you?
I think I had a little bit more time on Conan, um, but we're talking. I had made maybe 30 seconds more,
Okay.
not a lot of time. The only real difference was I submitted for Conan, like I sent him a YouTube clip, and I actively tried to get on that show.
Mhm.
The other show came to me and said, "Can you do the show?" And kind of on very short notice, they called me on a Monday and said, "Can you be here Wednesday to tape?"
Wow.
So that one was kind of a pressure cooker in that I had no idea it was going to happen, and then I had to be ready and be in LA um, in 2 days on
Oh
television.
God.
So that was how those two were different for me.
Okay. So one of them was like planned and one of them was not at all.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not a normal situation. I think what had happened is they had hired a new uh, stand-up segment producer,
Yeah.
and she needed she just needed a comedian. I think she went to YouTube and just watched Conan clips, and it was like, oh, I like this guy.
Oh, this guy's a little funny.
Yeah, so she called me and said, "Can you be in LA on Wednesday?" I said, "Yeah,
All
I,
right.
I can do that."
So a lot of people think that bombing is a huge thing in the process of improving your own skills in comedy. Do you have you bombed a lot of shows, and do you think it's very important to improving it?
Um, I think I disagree and say that I don't think bombing helps you with improving, because usually when you're bombing, uh, even the stuff that works well isn't working.
Mm,
So if I'm bombing, uh, the jokes that I've told 1,000 times that have always worked are not working. So that wouldn't be a reason to change them. But what does happen from bombing is it builds uh, like a thick skin. You're Because when I
resilience.
first started, yes, when I first started, bombing just hurt my feelings. And you could tell from my face that I wasn't doing well and I wasn't having fun.
Hmm.
And that was a skill I had to learn, was to be able to, because you can turn it around. If you're
Yeah.
not doing well, you can still figure out a way to do well. But if you're not doing well and you just decide this is over and I just got to get through it,
Yeah.
it's not going to get any better. So, after it's happened a certain number of times and it doesn't hurt your feelings anymore, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. It's another day. There's another audience I can go tell jokes for. Once it doesn't bother you so much, then you start to learn, okay, this isn't going well. What can I adjust or change to hopefully make this go better? And that's a situation where I might try crowd work or talking to
Mm,
someone, or shift gears in some manner, because
yeah.
whatever it is I'm doing isn't working. So let's figure out if I can, you know,
Try something new.
change the course. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think is like the biggest difference between like just say performing to smaller crowds or like other bigger crowds, which is like to hundreds of people instead of like to dozens?
Um, I do think there's kind of a sweet spot. I love like 100 to 150.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I say that as a guy who can't sell 1,000 tickets. So maybe I would say that's the right number. But, 100 and 100 to 150, it still feels intimate. It feels like in a room that has that number of people, you can kind of, if you want to, still see everyone depending
Mm-hmm.
on the spotlight. Uh, but once you get into several hundred people and bigger, it's not as intimate of a show. Then you're almost performing a play. Uh,
Mm. Okay.
Basically, you are playing the part of a stand-up comedian.
You're taking
Whereas,
on like a
the
role.
smaller one, yeah, um, it's just a less connection with the audience in those big, big rooms.
I see. And
And it
also,
doesn't mean they enjoy it less or anything.
yeah.
It's still the show they came to see,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's just a little different for you as a comedian.
Okay. See, I find it interesting because like a lot of people, I feel like just like personally thinking about it, I feel like performing to a smaller crowd would be harder because if it's going to be harder to make these people laugh if no one else is laughing, you know?
So there is a number where that is true.
Okay.
100 to 150 people, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even down to probably, I think even 40 or 50, depending on the room. If you have 40 or 50 people in a room that seats 300, they are going to feel self-conscious. They're going to feel like, well, what do we not know that everyone else knows? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
why are we here and no one else is here? Um, a room with 40 or 50 people that seats 40 or 50 people is going to feel packed, and they won't be hard to make laugh. Now, when you get down to 20 people or 15 people, then you're going to have trouble because there's no, like, laughter is contagious. And when you only have that
Mm-hmm.
many people, you can't really get the show on a roll. It's difficult. So there is kind of a certain number that you need to be over to make it feel really good. Uh, but that's still like 20 or
Yeah.
25.
Okay.
Ideally, you don't want to be performing for 25 people. It's still not great,
Yeah, yeah.
but you can make it work.
Okay, I see. And how do you usually get like gigs, would you say? Would you have to reach out to different clubs and be like, "Hey, I'm coming here," or do they come out and reach out for to you?
So it's for a long time, you do it yourself. You email the clubs and you usually send them a YouTube link of you performing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they like you, they'll tell you what weeks they have available. And it works like that. At a certain level, when you become famous enough or start selling enough tickets, then you will have an agent that does those things for you.
Do you have an agent?
I do not. I
Okay.
have an agent for corporate events, which is performing
Oh.
for companies or businesses that need a comedian to come in. But just for regular clubs, I do not.
Is there any difference between like performing in like different clubs compared to like corporates?
Clubs are always better, almost always better, because those people came to see comedy. But when you're at a corporate event, they went to a work function, and there happens to
Mm.
be a comedian there. And that's fine, but there's a lot of people that have never gone to see stand-up comedy, and they wouldn't choose to do it, and
Yeah.
they're sitting in the audience. So
Okay.
it is harder to uh, feel like you're doing great at a corporate event. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it has happened to me, several times. Sometimes they're amazing. And, I've had some go so well, I could have recorded it for an album,
Yeah.
which you would never guess that going into it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so sometimes it goes great, but it never surprises me if it doesn't go well.
I see. But do you get paid better if you do corporates?
That's the only reason you do it. Yes,
I
because the money is a lot better.
mean, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So
because it's a harder job. Plus, you always have to be extremely clean to do
that is true because HR is not going to be happy with you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I get offered those gigs is because I work clean.
Oh, okay. I see. So that's like a benefit for you, I guess, if you feel like doing corporates.
Yes, yeah. If you're willing to take the hit of not enjoying it.
Yeah.
But usually at worst, it's still only 45 minutes of your life. You're like, I can suffer for 45 minutes for this amount of money.
Yeah. If you need that extra little cash on the side.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're always thinking about. And you're like, yeah, I still get it paid at the end.
Yeah. And why did you decide to move to New York? Was it because of the comedy scene there?
Yeah. When I was younger, a comedian had told me your only three choices in comedy are New York, LA, or obscurity. And I don't necessarily think that's true anymore. I think with social media and things like that, you can
Yeah.
become well known living outside of those two cities. But what it's great for is networking.
Hmm.
Like all of the greatest comedians live in New York. They just do. And in LA, you have some good comedians, but a lot of comedians that wanted to be actors. They're like, I want to be on television or I
Yeah,
want to be
yeah.
in movies. But if you're a comedian and you just want to be a great comedian, it helps to live in New York City.
Okay.
Plus, there's a lot of opportunities to perform here. There's a ton of clubs, and just knowing all the other comedians
Is there a
is what makes it
different
worth it.
like type of comedy or like it's a different way to let's just say produce a comedy to different audiences in different like towns and things? Like would you have to change it?
I don't, because I I won't really keep a joke if it's only going to work in front of like one type of audience.
Okay.
Like to me, it's not worth the effort to write a joke like that. I want to write a joke that I can tell every single time I go on stage.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't really change what I do.
Would you try to make the show more personal if you go to a specific like city and like
I mean, I would if there was something I noticed that I thought was funny, I might say something about it. But you also have to be careful is if you noticed it, probably 100 other comedians before you did too. So you
mm,
run the risk of telling the exact same joke that
yeah.
someone else did
Yeah,
last week or 3 weeks ago or the last time that person came to a comedy club.
yeah. Okay. So it's like you just have to be careful about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have an instinct of either that's an easy joke that's, been made before, or I'm pretty sure no one's ever thought this one before.
And have you like ever thought of like changing what you like? Have you thought of going on like television or like acting in some way in a comedy film or something?
Um, I've started doing a little acting, not because I pursued it, but it got offered to me.
Oh.
Um, and I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
I really did love it. And I still don't think it's something I will pursue.
Yeah.
Um, just because, I'm 50 now. Like my whole life has been stand up. So it's what I do really well. I don't want to start over in the acting world and start going to auditions, you
Mm.
know, 7 times a week. And
Yeah, I feel like auditions are a very painful thing to do.
yeah, every comedian that I talk to that has done auditions, they're like, you're sitting in a room with 40 guys that look exactly like you do, and you're all reading the exact same lines
Yeah.
and hoping to get a part. And I don't really have any interest in that,
Okay. I mean, I would say
even though I enjoyed acting.
okay. I would say stand up is like like in the comedy. like live comedy, it's the most similar to acting in a way because you're kind of like repeating a line over and over again to see.
That's what I learned. There's a lot of skills that transfer from stand up to acting.
Okay, so you basically have an advantage going in. So
A little bit, yeah,
a little bit, a little bit,
yeah.
yeah. Um, and how would you say? How would you like in a day in a day in a life of you? How do you
Yeah.
usually spend the time trying to do like plan out like different gigs or like make out jokes? Like, what do you usually spend? How much hours or time do you spend on each thing?
I have on a, like a just a normal day. Uh, I writing is the first thing I will do
Mm-hmm.
because you get it out of the way and it's done. And then I'll spend another hour on like working on booking and things like that. But that's honestly about it. The rest of the day is taken up with life and you know taking care of my kid and other responsibilities and things like that. So it doesn't take a lot of work to be good at this.
Dang.
uh, but it takes a little bit of luck,
Yeah.
a little bit of right place, right time, things like that. But I feel like everyone kind of gets their break at some point, and it just matters whether you were ready for it or not.
What would you say your break was?
Is that
What would you say your break was?
Conan?
Conan?
Mhm.
Dang. That's
That
a large
happened.
break.
Yeah, that was a big one. But up to that point, really nothing had happened in my career. So, um, other than working at it and trying to get good at it. Um, but yeah, that was the first big break.
Okay. In the beginning of your career, did you have to do like kind of do like a halftime into a different job and halftime into this, or did you just fully dive into it?
Um, kind of. Uh, I never, I never had to do the thing where you had to pick the day job over comedy
Hmm.
because I transitioned from being a teacher into writing marching band shows.
Yeah.
Like I choreograph the drill for marching bands, and that job only took me 3 months a year. So that gave me 9 months out of the year to work on comedy. And
Oh.
writing band shows paid all of my bills. So I also didn't have to worry about comedy having to pay the bills.
Okay.
So, for a very, very long time, I would basically take the summer off from comedy and write band shows. And then in September, I'd go back to doing comedy.
Okay. Quick question about doing the band designs. How do you place the flutes?
Oh, always in the back. No.
Yeah.
It depends on what's going on.
Yeah. Because I usually march color guard now, but in my first year marching, I had to march flute, and
Yeah.
I swear to God, they always put us in places where you could not hear us at all.
Well, the problem is you can't hear you no matter where we put you.
Okay, but at least there's like a chance, you know?
No. The only chance is if you're in the pit next to a microphone. That's when we'll hear you.
Yeah, I guess.
Otherwise, you're just bodies marching around.
No, we really are. Like, we were making, because we were playing like Moana for a halftime or something, and they made a boat. And I was literally the tip of like the sail. And I was like, there's no way, no one's going to hear me. So why is the like,
Yeah.
what is the point of trying to play this music? It's just like there for show.
Yeah. I guarantee if it's important, someone else is playing the part. A brass instrument or a xylophone or something.
Something like that. So that's why I did color
I don't know.
guard, because you at least can see me. You know,
Exactly.
we do flashy things. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um, and I've only been to New York once in my life. So, and I enjoyed it a lot, but at that time I didn't really know comedy well. Like I liked Stephen Colbert, but that was kind of like it. And what would you say are places that I would have to visit, knowing that like my interest in comedy?
Um, you will have to be 18 or 21 for most of the places.
Okay.
Because a lot of the clubs are bars and things like that. But,
Yeah.
there's all the regular clubs. The Comedy Cellar's the famous one. Uh, it's You want to make reservations for that one because it's sold out every night.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of what they call produced shows in New York that are oftentimes better than the comedy clubs. They're produced in the back rooms of bars and stages here and there. It's usually a comedian that produces the show,
Hmm.
and they'll do it because they want a place where they can guarantee themselves stage time. But some of these shows become very, very successful, and um, those are oftentimes, for me at least, even more fun than doing the clubs.
What's the difference between like a club and a produced show?
The club is like it's only there to be a comedy club, but a produced show is like it'll be uh, Jimmy's bar, and then in the back there's a stage and a microphone, and maybe on Tuesday nights they have a guitar player, and Wednesday nights they have whatever jazz, and on Thursday night at 8 they have comedy.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like it's not just like all purely comedy.
Not at all. It's almost that's a very small part of probably what happens at these places.
Okay. And there are they any like what is the best cities you visited in touring for comedy, would you say?
I like. I mean, I love New York, but DC. I love Washington DC. Has always been good for me. I like Minneapolis.
Hmm.
Minneapolis has always been great, and Denver, I think, is a great city for comedy.
Do they have like a large comedy like scene there?
Yeah, yeah. Denver does. DC, but it comes and goes. But I think DC has a good scene now. Minneapolis for sure is a fantastic comedy scene.
Okay. And just a question.
If you want to start doing comedy, I would almost recommend going to Minneapolis.
I will try. I will try if I can find a way. Yeah. Just a question. Do you try to um include, especially with like the election year coming up, do you try to include politics in your content?
No, because it's everything's too divided now, and
Yeah.
has been my whole career. It's always been a point where if make a joke about this person, you alienate half the room.
Hmm.
And I've never been at a point where I could afford to lose half the audience.
Yeah.
So, and it's also, especially now, we hear so much about it. Like, we're bombarded with politics our whole life, every waking moment. Uh, I think when people go to a comedy club, they want to forget about a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
You know, just want to take a break and laugh, and you know. So I know that there's comics that do well telling political jokes, but I'm not that guy.
Do you think there's like especially the DNC occurring now? Do you think they would ever like try to book a comedian there?
I don't think so. That's a tough gig anyway. I mean, Jon Stewart's probably the only guy that's really uh, capable of it.
Yeah, Jon Stewart, probably. Have you been watching his Daily Show?
Yeah, it's the greatest thing he's ever done. I'm so happy he came back.
No, I'm so happy he came back because I didn't really like comedy when he was on it before, but now that it's like on Mondays, I just watch Mondays. I'm like, it's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
What are your
yeah,
some
he's
like
so good at.
yeah?
What's that?
What are some of your like favorite just like shows or like movies you watch for comedy or just in general, I guess?
I think my favorite movie of all time is Groundhog Day. It's an old Bill Murray movie.
Okay.
trying to think of what else. That's my favorite. But I also love movies,
Yeah.
so I'm I'm not super critical about movies, so I won't trash a movie. This was wrong with this one, and that
Yeah.
it didn't do this right. Like I love to go to the movie theater with my kid and watch a movie, and it's always a good time.
Have you watched the Minions movie, Minions 4 yet?
Yeah, we went and saw that one this summer.
How was it?
It was good.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually went to watch it like yesterday morning, my second time watching it in theaters, but
Yeah,
it's just so silly.
yeah, yeah. Silly and fun.
Exactly. Have you watched
I get it.
hmm?
I was gonna say I got to run here in a minute. Do you have like any questions you want to do to wrap it up?
Okay, last question. I usually give this to everyone. What is some
All right.
advice you would give to someone who wants to pursue comedy?
Um, my advice is to make sure you like love the process. Um, like for me, being on stage is great and getting laughs is great, but the job would be infinitely harder if I didn't enjoy writing.
Okay.
And I love writing, and I love trying to figure out how to make the joke the funniest. And uh, if you don't like that part, I think you're going to have a much harder time in this business.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's the part everyone sees is the on stage, but the part I think that makes you great is sort of comes from off stage.
All right. I'll be sure to enjoy writing if I ever do pursue it. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with me here. I hope I didn't bore you.
Yeah, nope, not at all. Thanks for asking. I'm going to be in Ann Arbor in January. They probably won't let you in, but
We'll
uh,
see.
yeah, if you befriend Roger and he lets you come hang out in the back and watch comedy or whatever, I'll be there. I think it's end of January. It's
Okay.
If it's not on their schedule, it's on mine on my website.
All right. It's at the end of finals, so like maybe I'll get to sneak in. I don't know. All right. Well, I hope to see you in person someday.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you. All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to What a Comedian. I hope you enjoyed this, and I actually really had really fun talking to him. I personally believe that he did not like talking to me that much, but now that I'm listening back to it, it actually wasn't bad. So, I'm okay with it. But I do have some nasty habits. I did record this a while ago, so my nasty habits are like, oh, that's not really it. But I'll try to improve on them as we go along with more and more interviews. I currently have 4 more in the bank for you guys. Currently making or creating a 5th one. So I definitely have a lot more content to give out, and perhaps I'll release an episode on my findings and learnings for stand up through my online classes, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, sorry. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day. And I know because of the recent things in America, your emotions might be good or bad. I don't know. I don't judge. But I hope, no matter what, that you know that life is funny in general. Like, I don't know. I view it as a very funny thing to look at. But don't listen to a high school kid. Be yourself. Life goes on. All right. See you guys later.